First contact fallacy. Admiral Nexus stood on the command deck of the Valkyrie flagship Eternal Dominance, his 3 pairs of eyes fixed on the blue-green planet displayed on the vast view screen. Earth, such an unassuming name for what the Valkyrie High Command considered a potential threat to their 12-system empire. Display the latest intelligence. Nexus ordered, his translator converting his clicking speech into the standardized Galactic common used throughout the fleet. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex, activated the holographic display. Our observations confirm the humans remain divided into approximately 200 political entities. Their military capabilities are primitive: chemical propellants, rudimentary nuclear weapons, and no unified defense system. Their space presence is negligible. Nexus's skin rippled with blue-green patterns, a sign of contemplation among his species, and yet the Prediction Council marks them as a Class 1 potential threat. Explain this contradiction. Their rate of technological advancement, Admiral. Vex replied, bringing up a timeline. What takes most species centuries, humans accomplish in decades. Observe from atmospheric flight to lunar landing in 66 planetary cycles. From basic computing to global information networks in under 50. The Council believes if left unchecked, they will surpass our technology within 3 generations. Then our course is clear, Nexus said. The Dominance Protocol must be implemented. We will strike their military installations, demonstrate our overwhelming power, and force their surrender before they realize their potential. His skin shifted to the crimson hue of decision. Prepare the fleet for attack. First wave targets their orbital assets. Second wave eliminates military command centers. By this planet's next rotation, they will understand the futility of resistance. Across Earth, humanity continued with their daily lives, unaware that alien eyes were watching, calculating, and preparing to strike. In Nevada, Dr. Alina Reyes worked late in her university laboratory, testing a prototype energy transfer system. The government had rejected her funding proposal last year, calling it speculative technology with no immediate defense applications. Now she funded her research through a tech startup, believing her work could revolutionize clean energy production. In Bangalore, software engineer Raj Kumar debugged code for his company's new machine learning system, designed to optimize traffic flow in congested cities. The system could process and adapt to changing conditions faster than any previous AI. In Seoul, teenager Minji Park tweaked her custom-built drone, adding modifications that made it faster and more maneuverable than commercial models. She hoped to win next month's International Drone Racing Championship. None of them knew their work would soon be repurposed for humanity's survival. The Valkyrie attack began at dawn, Greenwich Mean Time. Brilliant flashes illuminated the sky as Earth's satellites and space stations disintegrated under precision strikes. Global communications faltered. Internet connections dropped. Television broadcasts cut to static. Within 30 minutes, humanity lost decades of orbital infrastructure. First wave successful, Admiral. Vex reported. Their orbital capabilities have been neutralized with minimal energy expenditure. Excellent, Nexus replied, his skin glowing with satisfaction. Begin the second wave. Target their largest military installations and command centers. Across Earth, chaos erupted as Valkyrie ships descended through the atmosphere. Washington, D.C., Moscow, Beijing, London, New Delhi, all reported unidentified aircraft impervious to radar detection. Fighter jets scrambled to intercept, but were swiftly destroyed by energy weapons unlike anything human militaries had encountered. At the Pentagon, General Diana Williams watched in horror as the defense systems she had trusted throughout her 30-year career proved worthless against the alien technology. Status report, she demanded, as the underground command center shook from nearby impacts. We've lost contact with Pacific Command and European headquarters, a lieutenant replied, his voice trained. Our missile defense systems aren't even slowing them down. Nuclear deterrent systems are offline. Ma'am, they're systematically eliminating our military capacity. Williams studied the attack pattern displayed on the remaining screens. They're targeting command structures and weapon systems, but largely avoiding civilian infrastructure. This isn't annihilation, it's subjugation. 12 hours after the attack began, the Valkyrie broadcast their message to Earth on all frequencies, in every major language. People of Earth, we are the Valkyrie Empire, masters of 12 star systems. Your military forces have been neutralized. Your space access destroyed. Your world governments are in disarray. We offer you this single opportunity. Surrender now and accept status as a protectorate of the Empire, or face complete destruction. You have 24 hours to comply. In the smoldering ruins of what had once been No-Raid headquarters, General Williams gathered the surviving senior military officers from 6 nations. They hit us hard, but they've made a critical mistake, she said, pointing to intelligence reports coming in from around the world. They targeted what they recognized as military installations, but that's not where our real technological edge lies. What do you mean? Asked the British Air Marshal, his uniform still covered in dust from the collapsed London command center. Williams pulled up images on her tablet. They destroyed our fighter jets but missed the experimental propulsion laboratory at MIT. They bombed our naval bases but ignored the underwater drone development facility in Yokohama. They crippled our satellite network but missed the distributed mesh network project at Stanford. Civilian technology, the Russian general noted, understanding dawning on his face. Exactly, Williams replied. They think they've broken our military capability, but they don't understand how human innovation works. Our greatest assets aren't wearing uniforms. They're in universities, private companies, and even garages of hobbyists. In her partially collapsed laboratory, Dr. Elena Reyes analyzed data from the alien attacks. Her energy transfer system had accidentally intercepted and recorded signatures from the Valkyrie weapons during a nearby strike. The patterns were fascinating, advanced, yes, but recognizable. The aliens used principles similar to her own research, just more refined. They're channeling plasma through electromagnetic containment fields, she muttered to herself, scribbling calculations. But there's inefficiency in the modulation, a resonance vulnerability. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number she'd been given for emergencies, a direct line to the remaining military command. This is Dr. Elena Reyes, she said when the line connected. I need to speak with whoever's in charge. I found something about the alien weapons. 3 days after the initial attack, Admiral Nexus grew concerned. The 24-hour deadline had passed, but instead of surrender, Earth's response was fragmented and unpredictable. Some nations broadcast defiance. Others attempted negotiations. Many remained silent. This is unprecedented, Vex said, reviewing incoming data. Previous species unified in response to our ultimatum, either in surrender or coordinated resistance. The humans appear incapable of collective action. Nexus's skin darkened with frustration. Their fractured nature makes standard subjugation protocols ineffective. We may need to implement selective destruction to motivate compliance. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. We're detecting unusual transmissions, encrypted using rapidly shifting frequencies. Our standard decryption algorithms can't keep pace. Nexus flinched in surprise. Such adaptation within days of first contact was unexpected. Origin. Multiple sources. The pattern suggests a distributed network rather than centralized command. Before Nexus could respond, alarms blared throughout the flagship. Energy spike detected from the surface. The tactical officer shouted, "Configuration unknown." Below, in what had been a baseball stadium in Chicago, Dr. Rice activated her modified energy transfer system, now repurposed into a directed energy weapon. The principles of her clean energy technology, combined with observations of Valkyrie weapons, had allowed her team to create a focused beam that exploited the resonance vulnerability in alien shields. The beam struck a Valkyrie scout ship passing overhead. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vessel's shields flickered, failed, and the ship itself spiraled downward, crashing into Lake Michigan. Admiral Nexus stared at the tactical display in disbelief as the scout ship's signal vanished. "Impossible," he whispered, his skin paling to ash gray. Their technology was assessed as primitive. They couldn't possibly develop countermeasures this quickly. "Admiral," Vex said quietly, "I believe we may have miscalculated." Around the world, humanity was adapting with terrifying speed. Minji Park's racing drone designs were being modified by military engineers to create swarms of autonomous reconnaissance vehicles. Raj Kumar's traffic optimization AI was repurposed to predict and counter Valkyrie attack patterns. Automotive factories retooled to produce armored vehicles. Pharmaceutical labs synthesized compounds to combat alien atmospheric weapons. The Valkyrie had expected to face a primitive, disorganized species with centralized military power. Instead, they found themselves fighting a distributed, rapidly adapting civilization that turned everyday technology into weapons of war. 1 week into the invasion, Admiral Nexus sent an urgent communication to the Valkyrie High Command. Initial assessment of human military capability was catastrophically incorrect. Request immediate reinforcements and revised conquest protocols. The reply came 12 hours later. Request denied. Complete your mission with assigned resources. Failure is unacceptable. Nexus's skin turned the deep purple of grim determination as he addressed his officers. "We must adapt our strategy. The humans are not the primitive species we expected. They are something far more dangerous. A civilization that thrives on crisis and transforms faster than any species we've encountered." As he spoke, thousands of miles below, General Williams stood with Dr. Rice and a team of scientists and engineers from 20 nations. "1 week ago, they thought they'd broken us," Williams said. "Today, we launch our first coordinated counterattack. Tomorrow, we take the fight to their ships." She looked at the gathered faces, not soldiers but civilians who had turned their genius toward humanity's defense. "They declared war on humanity," Williams continued, her voice firm with resolve. "But they're about to discover we haven't even started fighting yet." The human factor. 6 months after the Valkyrie invasion began, Earth had transformed. Cities bore scars from alien attacks, but between the craters and rubble, something remarkable had emerged: unity and innovation on an unprecedented scale. Admiral Nexus, once confident of swift victory, now spent his days in the flagship's tactical center, studying reports of repeated failures. His skin had settled into a permanent grayish hue of anxiety that his officers pretended not to notice. "Status update," he commanded, voice lacking its former authority. Sub-Commander Vex displayed the latest battlefield map. Red indicators showing Valkyrie-controlled areas had shrunk by 30% in the last month alone. "We've lost another 12 vessels in the past week," Vex reported. "The humans continue to exploit the shield frequency vulnerability. Our attempts to reconfigure have been unsuccessful. They adapt to each change within hours." "How?" Nexus demanded, slamming his appendage against the console. "How are they matching our adaptations so quickly? Even advanced civilizations require months to reverse engineer our technology." Vex hesitated before responding. "Intelligence suggests they aren't merely copying our technology, Admiral. They're improving upon it." On Earth, the Global Defense Initiative headquarters buzzed with activity. Where once nations had jealously guarded military secrets, now scientists, engineers, and soldiers from around the world worked side by side in what had previously been the headquarters of a multinational tech corporation. General Williams, now serving as GDI military coordinator, walked through the vast research and development floor with Dr. Elena Reyes, recently appointed as Global Science Director. The new shield disruption arrays are being manufactured at 27 facilities across 12 countries, Reyes explained as they passed workstations where engineers modify designs in real time. Production efficiency increased by 40% after we implemented Raj's AI manufacturing protocols. Williams nodded, still amazed by how quickly humanity had adapted. And the captured Valkyrie vessels. We've fully analyzed 3 of them now, Rise replied, leading Williams to a secure laboratory where the disassembled components of alien ships were spread across examination tables. Their technology is impressive but fundamentally similar to directions we were already exploring. Their propulsion system, for instance, uses principles our theoretical physicists proposed decades ago. We just hadn't prioritized developing them for military applications. A young engineer approached with a tablet displaying complex schematics. Williams recognized Minji Park, the former drone racing champion whose swarm coordination algorithms had revolutionized Earth's defense networks. We've completed the retrofit on the Jakarta defense grid, Park reported. The new targeting system processes incoming attacks 20 times faster than the previous version. We've also identified a potential vulnerability in the Valkyrie flagship's communication array. Williams studied the schematics. 6 months ago, such technology would have seemed like science fiction. Now it was being implemented globally by a workforce that had abandoned national rivalries in favor of species survival. Do we have enough range to target the flagship from the ground? Park grinned. Better than that. The captured scout ship retrofits are complete. We're ready for atmospheric test flights. In orbit, Admiral Nexus received the news he had been dreading. Confirmed, Admiral. The sensor officer reported, voice trembling. 14 human vessels have achieved orbit. Configuration appears to be modified Valkyrie scout ships. Nexus stared at the tactical display, watching the impossible unfold. The humans hadn't merely defended their planet. They had reverse-engineered, modified, and improved upon captured Valkyrie technology to build their own space fleet in just 6 months. Impossible, he whispered. No species develops this quickly. That's where you're wrong, said Vex, his usual deference replaced by grim certainty. I've been studying their historical archives. The humans have a pattern. Periods of seemingly modest advancement followed by explosive innovation during crisis. Their most significant technological leaps occurred during their global conflicts. You mean they advance faster during war? Nexus asked, the implications settling like ice in his stomach. They thrive on adversity, Vex confirmed. And we've given them the greatest adversity they've ever faced. Before Nexus could respond, the tactical display lit up with new alerts. The human vessels were deploying smaller craft, fighters that moved with greater speed and maneuverability than standard Valkyrie designs. They've improved the maneuverability, the tactical officer noted with professional admiration. Our scout ships could never achieve those turn rates. One by one, the fighters engaged Valkyrie patrol vessels. What should have been a massacre of primitive human craft instead became a stunning demonstration of adaptation. The human vessels targeted specific vulnerabilities, used unpredictable attack patterns, and coordinated with a precision that veteran Valkyrie pilots couldn't match. In the lead fighter, former commercial airline pilot Captain Sofia Rodriguez executed a maneuver that would have been impossible in Earth aircraft, bringing her vessel directly behind a Valkyrie cruiser. Shield frequencies confirmed, she reported over the secure channel. Targeting propulsion systems. Her weapons, modified versions of Dr. Rai's energy disruptors, bypassed the cruiser's shields and struck its engines. The massive alien vessel drifted powerless, unable to maneuver or retreat. Similar scenes played out across Earth orbit as the first human space offensive systematically disabled the Valkyrie fleet, not destroying them, capturing them. Admiral Nexus watched in stunned silence as his orbital forces were neutralized with surgical precision. The humans weren't fighting with desperation. They were executing a carefully coordinated strategy that exploited every weakness in Valkyrie technology and tactics. They're hailing us, the communications officer announced. On screen, Nexus replied, bracing himself for whatever came next. The view screen activated to show General Williams, her expression composed and confident, not the face of someone fighting a desperate last stand, but of a commander who had seized the initiative. Admiral Nexus, she began, This is General Diana Williams of the Earth Global Defense Initiative. Your orbital fleet has been neutralized. Your ground forces are isolated. You have two options: immediate withdrawal from our solar system or surrender. Nexus stared at the human woman, unable to comprehend how thoroughly his mission had collapsed. "This is impossible," he finally managed to say. "Your civilization was assessed as centuries behind ours." Williams smiled thinly. "Your assessment was flawed. You measured our military technology, not our potential. You saw our divisions, not our capacity to unite against a common threat. Most importantly, you failed to understand that humans don't just adapt to survive. We evolved to thrive." Behind Williams, Nexus could see humans operating modified Valkyrie technology with casual expertise. 6 months. In 6 months, they had gone from a pre-spacefaring military to capturing advanced alien vessels. "The Valkyrie Empire does not surrender," Nexus stated, falling back on Imperial doctrine. "And retreat is considered failure." "Then I suggest you consider changing that policy," Williams replied. "Because we analyzed your communication protocols. We know you haven't been honest with your leadership about the situation here. We know reinforcements were denied." Nexus's skin blanched to pale white, the Valkyrie expression of shock. They had decoded the encrypted Imperial communications. Williams continued, "We're prepared to offer terms. Your surviving crews will be repatriated. You will provide technical data on potential threats in nearby systems. In exchange, we won't pursue your fleet beyond our solar system." "And if I refuse?" Nexus challenged, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Reyes stepped into view beside Williams. "Then we demonstrate our newly developed long-range propulsion technology by sending your captured vessels back to the Valkyrie homeworld, under our control." The implication was clear. If the Valkyrie continued hostilities, humanity would take the fight to their territory. In that moment, Admiral Nexus understood the Prediction Council's assessment. Humans weren't just another conquerable species. They were something the Empire had never encountered. A civilization where crisis didn't break them but transformed them, where technological development wasn't limited by tradition or doctrine, where adaptation wasn't just a survival strategy, but a fundamental characteristic. "I will consider your terms," Nexus finally replied, his skin shifting to the blue-green of deliberation. After the transmission ended, Vex approached cautiously. "Admiral, Imperial protocol demands we continue fighting." Nexus stared at the tactical display, watching as human vessels secured the disabled Valkyrie ships. Imperial protocol never anticipated this scenario. The humans have achieved in 6 months what should have taken centuries. He turned to his second-in-command. "Contact the High Command. Tell them we've encountered a Class 0 civilization." Vex's eyes widened. Class 0, the theoretical designation for a species with unlimited adaptive potential. In 12 centuries of Imperial expansion, it had never been assigned. "They will demand verification," Vex warned. "They'll have it soon enough," Nexus replied grimly. On Earth, General Williams and Dr. Rice watched as real-time satellite imagery showed the Valkyrie flagship changing course, moving away from Earth orbit. "They're retreating," Williams observed. Rice nodded. "But they'll be back, or others will. Now that we've been noticed." "Then we'll be ready," Williams replied. "The Unified Space Development Program launches next week. The Valkyrie gave us something we've never had before, a common purpose." Across the planet, former automotive plants now produced spacecraft components. Computer programmers designed operating systems for interstellar vessels. University labs developed new materials based on reverse-engineered alien technology. What had begun as desperate defense measures had transformed into humanity's great leap forward. 6 months later, the first Earth-designed faster-than-light vessel prepared for its maiden voyage. Its name, emblazoned on the hull in a dozen Earth languages: Inevitable Progress. In the distant Valkyrie capital, the High Command received Admiral Nexus's comprehensive report on the Earth campaign. The final line read simply, They declared war on humanity, then discovered we hadn't even started fighting. The Prediction Council immediately upgraded Earth from Class 1 to Class 0 potential threat, with a single recommendation appended to the file: avoid at all costs.